If you're going to show, now would be a good time.
Is Overwatch 2 truly a sequel? It's a question that has lingered around the second iteration of Blizzard's multiplayer shooter ever since its unveiling in 2019, and one that intensified when it was revealed that it will fully replace the existing Overwatch, not exist alongside it. Well, now it's finally in our hands, and I can say that while it's less of a reinvention and more of an evolution of the intense, nuanced, and brilliantly colourful team-based battle that made its predecessor so enjoyable, it still brings enough new things to the table that it feels like its own distinct game and not simply Overwatch 1.5. The bigger question, as Overwatch 2 begins to open up to the public as a free-to-play game, is how many of those new ideas are positive changes. Different is, after all, not synonymous with better, and there are definite improvements here, just not universally so. Because it's not a radical reinvention, Overwatch 2 still revolves around the exciting, team-based hero shooter gameplay that made the original such a massive hit when it launched in 2016. Its sheer variety and character design across its 35 heroes, the ways in which they each feel unique to control, and the charm bursting from every scene remain clear to see. Everybody's weapons still feel fantastic to wield, and a full pass to the sounds they produce and a slight visual glow-up only adds to the empowering joy of battle. Its highs and lows, from the delight of those last-second tactical switch-ups to the agony of a teammate refusing to step onto the objective at a crucial moment, have yet to be fully replicated by any game since.
Lovely.
No!
Outside of the fact that Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play game, by far the biggest shake-up that comes with the sequel is the move from its traditional 6v6 matches to a smaller 5v5 format. It's just too few players in the arena, but it represents a huge ideological shift in which tangible repercussions are immediately felt. Aside from the potential horror of discovering you were the 6th best Overwatch player out of your friends and finding yourself the odd person out, it comes with both blessings and curses. It fully drags Overwatch 2 out of the stagnant meta swamp its predecessor found itself in over the past couple of years, but also denies itself some of the luster of its satisfying team play. Team compositions now consist of 2 damage, 2 support, and just 1 tank character. On one hand, this huge shift in team composition is a thrilling breath of fresh air, and critically, something significant to set Overwatch 2 apart from its predecessor. It's a true test of skill that promotes aggressive play and gives one-on-one fights much more significance than before. The reduction in stun abilities that halt you in your tracks or interrupt powers definitely helps the flow of a match, even if it does mean my beloved Cassidy no longer has his trusty flashbang. On the other hand, Overwatch 2 appears to be moving away from the tactical team play that originally made it unique among shooters. It just feels like some of that satisfying team-centric magic has been lost in the process of shifting to 5v5. While it does mean that attritional shield battles thankfully appear to be a thing of the past, moments like perfectly timed ultimate combos are now a rarer sight. Matches often feel much more like sets of deathmatch skirmishes rather than long tactical battles. Many characters have been successfully reworked to fit into Blizzard's new 5v5 vision. Orisa, one of Overwatch's sturdiest defensive heroes, has undergone the most significant philosophical shift in terms of how Overwatch 2 is intended to be played by tank players. Her radical transformation from a reliable anchor to a mobile damage dealer is evident just by looking at her new skill set, but is felt even more on the battlefield. Nowhere is this change in philosophy more apparent than in the removal of her football net-shaped energy shield. As more and more barrier wielders were added to the original Overwatch over time, frustrations with shield-heavy metas rose. These initial adjustments to Overwatch 2 clearly address this, and thankfully those multi-shield days feel a distant memory due to the significant reduction in barriers being available to deploy. Outside of reworks, there are new heroes joining the party too, 1 from each class in fact, which brings the full roster to an impressive 35 in total. Sojourn, the newest damage character, is armed with a rapid-fire railgun and offers a fresh and viable alternative to Soldier 76. She doesn't reinvent the wheel, but her nimble skid and super jump combo, mixed in with her hard-hitting secondary fire, can be deadly. Kiriko is a ninja healer who shares some of her moveset with the damage-dealing Genji, but in reality, she plays more like Moira or Mercy, dashing in and out of the action to aid teammates and dish the odd headshot out with a kunai. She takes a little time to get used to, but can be very effective in highly skilled hands. My pick of the new additions so far though is Junker Queen. An aggressive tank, her abilities really sing when chained together as you swing her axe, throw a boomerang-like knife into someone, and finish them off with a shotgun blast. All three of these heroes are as well designed as you'd expect of Overwatch 2's pedigree, and are packed full of character, from their distinct looks to vibrant voice work. Beyond the shift to 5v5, a big addition to the sequel is the introduction of a brand new mode, Push. It's essentially a game of tug of war, with a Baymax-like robot pushing a barrier through a map on behalf of whichever team is closest to him. It does a great job of centralising the fight, with both teams focusing on a shared objective, and the more I've played it, the more it's grown on me. As with a real-life tug-of-war, Push is largely centred on momentum, and thus is very hard to wrestle back once things aren't going in your favour. This does mean that on those rare occasions when you do manage to turn the tide, it feels like a real team achievement though. A thrill that is so synonymous with Overwatch's other modes. I can see it becoming a real hit. The maps that accompany Push are all well put together, with the traditional mix of winding streets and tight choke points that Blizzard has always implemented effectively into its arenas. They're all lovingly crafted, with art and sound working in harmony to create little details that build into charm-filled holes. The 6 new additions that come with the sequel are no exception, with the Rio de Janeiro inspired map being my current favourite. Its charming carnival-themed payload that you navigate to Lucio's club showcases the joy Overwatch 2's maps can bring when they fuse both gameplay and character together. A thing of the past for Overwatch are loot boxes. The long controversial gambling mechanic that has now been replaced by a more modern battle pass system, costing 1,000 Overwatch coins or around $10 to buy. Each 9-week season will bring with it a new series of tiers to make your way through, unlocking a variety of cosmetics from voice lines to sprays as you collect XP. Blizzard has laid out a schedule by which each subsequent season will bring a new map, hero, or sometimes both to Overwatch 2, in a cadence not too dissimilar from when its predecessor initially launched. Having had a sneak peek at what's to come in the next few theme seasons, there are definitely some characters, locations, and even ambitious new modes worth looking forward to. It genuinely feels like an exciting time to be an Overwatch fan again, and for that, I'm more than grateful. I do have some slight worries about upcoming heroes being part of the premium battle pass tier and not instantly available to all though. That model pushes that pay to win door slightly ajar, in the sense that if a new hero is introduced who is particularly powerful or crucial to the evolving meta, then someone can choose to buy their way up the battle pass tiers, something we've seen, inadvertently or not, happen with Activision and the introduction of Call of Duty weapons to Warzone. The fact that each hero won't be available to use in competitive play for the first 3 weeks of existence is a fair navigation of this issue, however. Admittedly, my most anticipated seasonal content is not due until 2023. That's the story-centric PvE modes. The promise of more Overwatch lore is what has had me most excited since the sequel's reveal, and what could truly set it apart from its predecessor. It's a shame that none of this has made it in time for launch, but it's still something I eagerly await nonetheless. So, if the pertinent question to ask about Overwatch 2 is simply if it's a fun game, then the answer right now is yes. It's still a fundamentally great hero shooter, just one that is perhaps not currently operating at the towering height of its powers. Perhaps that greatness will be recaptured over time, as the community provides feedback through our many victories and defeats to come, and Overwatch 2 fulfills the promise of its newly rebuilt foundations. Overwatch 2 breathes new life into what was once the sharpest multiplayer shooter around before it had its edges severely dulled by Blizzard's attention shifting away. The switch to smaller 5v5 matches ushers in a new brawler age for Overwatch, where individual duels take precedence over tactical team play, and crucially, all but a handful of shields have been thrown out of the arena. The new heroes and maps hit the mark, while Push is one mode that could develop into a fan favourite over time. The fundamentals are all set for Overwatch to shine as it once did in the multiplayer shooter scene once again, and the future definitely looks bright with what is set to come over the following months. I can't review Overwatch 2 on what it could potentially be though, and instead can only judge what's in front of me at launch, and that is a very fun team-based FPS, packed full of charm and love for the world it takes place in, and one that I can't wait to lose hundreds more hours playing in. For more on Overwatch 2, check out the 10 major changes for the sequel, and for everything else Overwatch, stick with IGN.